Webinar, we'll be going over the Form 5500, specifically how to review and sign it electronically. This information in this presentation is general in nature and not intended to be a substitute for legal or tax advice. Please contact a qualified professional, such as an attorney or accountant, if you need legal or tax advice. Here's our agenda. We'll go over a basic review of what a 5500 is. We'll go over the steps for retrieving electronic credentials if you have already obtained them but you can't find them. We'll go over how to obtain electronic credentials if you're a new signer. We'll go over how to electronically file, and then the DOL acknowledgement that the filing was received, and we'll do some frequently asked questions. So just a basic review of the Form 5500. It's an annual return of an employee benefit plan. It is informational. It's pretty similar to type of a tax return for a 401k plan. It is required by ERISA and the Internal Revenue Code. They are open for public inspection. Anyone can search on the DOL's website and find a 5500. And the Department of Labor does administer the EBSA program, which is the Employee Benefits Security Administration, and the information is then transmitted to the IRS. So the 5500 is kind of a combination between the DOL and the IRS, which is pretty common for 401k plans and regulations. The information that's included would be participant counts at the beginning and the end of the year. So this would be people who have account balances, including people who are terminated. It'll be people who are eligible for the plan, even if they're not participating. It also does discuss financial assets at the beginning and the end of the year. So it'll say what the opening balance of the 401k plan's account was, and then what the total ending balance was. If you are required to file a large filer plan, more information on that, but that's usually for people who have 100 or more employees that are participants, then an audit report is required, and there's more details required as well. The 5500 also addresses fidelity bond information and timely deposits of 401k contribution and loan repayments. This is just some of the schedules that could be on the 5500. So 5500, that's the name of the return. The Schedule A is going to have insurance information. Both smaller plans who are less than 100 and don't have to do the detailed filing, as well as our large plans that do have to do the detailed filing, could have a Schedule A. Both these, the Schedule MB and SB, are for defined benefit plans. For the larger plans, they do sometimes have a Schedule C, a Schedule D, a Schedule H, and Schedule R. The other ones, the G and the I, are very rare, and they are only in certain circumstances. If you do not have to do the big DOL audit, or sorry, not DOL, the big 5500 audit, then you file what's called a Form 5500 SF, which usually stands for short form. This is for people who have less than 100 participants, so they don't have the big requirements that an audited plan does. The deadline for the 5500 is the last day of the 7th month following your plan year end. So for a calendar year plan, one that runs from January 1 to December 31st, the 5500 is due July 31st without extension. The good news is you are allowed to do an extension. So extensions are available, and then that adds an additional 2.5 months, which means your new deadline with an extension is October 15th. NOVA's policy is to extend 5500s if the form is not signed on or before the internal deadline, which is usually middle of July. There is an extension fee of $250 that takes into account the time to prepare and follow up for the extensions. One of the reports that comes with the 5500 is called the Summary Annual Report, or SAR. What this does is it just kind of summarizes everything that the 5500 has said about participant counts, assets, etc., into a written statement that you're supposed to give to your employees. So they do need to be delivered to the employees by the later of 9 months after the plan year close or 2 months after the due date for the 5500. So in that same example of a calendar year plan, if the filing is not extended, then the SAR or SAR must be handed out by 9/30, so September 30th. If it is extended, then you have until December 15th to supply the summary annual report to your employees and your participants with account balances. So there are some changes regarding the electronic credentials. So there's a new process that the Department of Labor is started this year, starting in January. So I'll go over the different changes and how to do that. For people who do currently have login credentials called EFAS2, so that would be the user ID and password, you can still use that for a little bit until September 1st. After September 1st, you won't be able to log into those, which is why we wanted to go over the new way to get credentials in case you want to switch over right away. And then if you do know your user ID and your PIN, then you can still use those. So you don't even need your password. That's why we do recommend people keep their user ID and their PIN. The user ID with EFAS is going to start with the letter A and have a string of numbers, and your PIN is 4 digits. So if you have some information, you're not sure what exactly that's for, but you know you have a user ID with that, it's probably your 5500. Um, However, you can go ahead and switch over to the login.gov account right now. You don't have to wait until September. So once you receive your 5500 signing invitation from Nova, they'll have a link that says click here. When you click here, this is what you get to. So it's called the secure signing page. This will have your plan name, your plan number, that's the IRS plan number, and then the year. So they'll say 2022. It will have your name as the administrator. So if this was my plan, this would say Amanda Vera. And then here is where you would put in your user ID and your PIN. If you know your user ID and PIN, you can go ahead and do that and do sign and transmit to eFast, and that's all you have to do to sign it. Additionally, it is good to download some items, so you'll want to go ahead and download the filing and attachments. We'll go over that in a little more detail. However, if you get this email and you click on the link and you don't know what your user ID is, there's a little help button that you can use, and the help button will let you, if you hover over it, this screen pops up. And then if you've lost your signer ID or your PIN or both, go ahead and click on this second link. So you will need both. If you don't have your PIN, you'll need both your user ID and your password. So when you click over to that link, you'll go to this page. If you've forgotten one, go ahead and click Forgot User ID. It'll ask you to put in your email. If you've forgotten your password, it'll go over that. We'll go ahead and go over each of these steps in more detail. Another reminder, this website will no longer be available starting on September 1st, so you could go ahead and sign in with your login.gov credentials. So once you said you forgot your user ID, this pops up and you'll go ahead and put your email and hit submit. And then it was going to ask you a challenge question. There are other challenge questions that it could be, but this is the most common. What is your place of birth? You would have answered this when you got your credentials and you signed up. So then you'd hit submit. And then once you do click submit, then your user ID pops up and it'll say this is your user ID. So you'll want to go ahead and make a note of that. Now, if you have forgotten your password, you would go back to that first link, and this time you would click Forgot Password. And you can search by either your user ID that you just got or your email. If you search by user ID, you would type out your user ID. If you search by email, then you do email. So you go ahead and hit Next. It's also going to ask you to verify your challenge question. It's going to be the same answer, same question. Go ahead and hit Submit. And then this pops up. So this is how you create a new password. There are very specific credentials required for an EFAST DOL password. So you want to make sure you follow all these guidelines with the 8 and 16 characters, at least one uppercase alpha, at least one lowercase alpha, at least one numeric, and at least one of the following special characters. So you'll need to employ all of these in creating your password. So you'll type it once and then confirm it and hit submit. Okay, so now that you have your user ID and your password, you could go back to that first page and say, click login, and then you'll type in your user ID and your password. This right here is what pops up when your password's been changed, by the way. So then here's my user. Then once you log in, you click this and it will show you your user ID and PIN. And remember, that is what you need. You need your user ID and your PIN. Okay, now we'll talk a little bit more about the new process. So let's say you've retrieved your credentials or you have your credentials and you also want to go ahead and switch to this login.gov. So you'll go back to the EFAS2 login. This was that page we saw, and click sign in with login.gov. You'll see this view. If you have a login.gov account already, then you'll put in your email password, your email address, and your password. If you don't have one, then you'll want to click create account. After you click create account, you'll receive this view. So you'll put in your email address. You can select from the 3 languages. You'll want to read the rules of use, check that and hit submit. And then you've confirmed your email address. So then after you hit submit, you are going to get an email sent to you. So you'll need to go to your email and click on the link so you can confirm your account and create a password. Once you click on that link, this is what pops up where it says you have confirmed your email address. So it is going to ask for a password. So it needs to be 12 characters or longer. It does have a few restrictions, so not common phrases or repeated characters like ABC 111. So it doesn't have the same exact requirements as the EFAST, but it still does have requirements. You can go ahead and hit show password if you want to make sure it's correct and you know that you have the right information. Hit continue. If you're interested, you can hit the little plus here for password safety tips and give you some little tips. Okay, so after you've done that, it is going to ask you to set up multi-factor authentication. You don't have to do more than one. You do have to do at least one. And if you only choose one, you're going to get a warning saying you have to do one. But you could do an application. You could have a text code, backup code, or a security key. And then this is very specifically if you're a government employee. So that one might probably want to apply. But yeah, pick at least one of them. You may pick 2 or more, but definitely you have to do one. Okay, so it will say, we'll share your, after you've done that, you'll say, we'll share your EFAS to connect to your account. So it'll show the email address that's on your account. You're going to get this little message that says, add a second authentication. So that's just another warning for you to say you need to do a second one if you can. Agree and continue. Once you hit agree and continue, your EFAS2 credentials will populate, and then you can select your account and you can link them. You'll get this message that says, congratulations, you've linked them. So now when you're retrieving your credentials, instead of logging into the EFAS2 user ID and password, you'll log in to login.gov, and that's where you'll get your credentials to sign the 5500. If you are if you do have a login.gov, you actually can go ahead and get a reset if you can't remember your password. You may or may not have a login.gov account. So this is what will happen. So if you type in your email and your password and you're like, oh, I think I do have this login.gov, and you get this message, then something's wrong. You can go ahead and reset your password. And then when you do that, it will be very similar to setting up your new password where you'll have to select a new password and do some security. Okay. Now, so let's say you're a new signer. This is the first time you've signed. Then you'll want to you'll actually will need to go to help because you'll have to obtain credentials. So that's something that's really important. In order to sign the 5500, you do need to get credentials from the Department of Labor. This is not automatically done for you. It's something that you'll have to set up yourself. So the way to get to what you need there is go to help again. And this time, select this third option, which is the welcome option. So you'll go over to this screen. You'll click sign in/up. If you are curious and you ever want to look up a 5500, this is actually how you do it. But right now we're focusing on credentials. So sign in/up. And then you'll be taken to this screen. So since you're a new user, you won't do the EFAST stuff. You're going to just start with your login.gov. So you actually can create this new account by clicking sign in with login.gov. Or if you have a login.gov account already, you can try putting it in there. Oh, sorry, that's for the existing EFAST, so you wouldn't have that. So click sign in with login.gov. You'll get this view. This is where you would put your login.gov credentials, your email address, and your password if you have one. If you don't have one, then you'll want to create an account. There is a privacy statement. It doesn't require you to read it, but it's not a bad idea. Just read it really quickly. So type in your stuff and click sign in or do create account. So after you click create account, it'll be this same view that we looked at earlier. So you're going to put in your email address, select your language. You do have to read the rules of use and check that you've read them, then hit submit and then create your password. Continue. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting that. So after you hit submit, you will get an email from login.gov that needs you to confirm your email address. So you'll click on the link, and once you click on the link, you will go here. It'll populate to here where it says you've confirmed your email address, and you'll go ahead and create your password. It's the same thing we looked at. You'll need a multi-factor authentication. You do have to select at least one of these. You'll get a little notice if you only select one, but you have to do at least one. Let's say you don't know if you have an eFast account or you can't remember or you know you don't. What you're going to do here is you'll go to continue to eFast, and so you put in your email address and then hit agree and continue. Once you do that, this is going to pop up if you don't have one. So it'll say we did not find one for you. So you'll need to do create. Okay. So once you create, you do have to go through this website. You'll get a privacy statement. So you'll read your privacy statement, say that you've read the agreement, hit accept agreement. And then you have to fill in this information. For user type, go ahead and just leave filing signer. You don't need filing author. It will be default checked. So feel free to uncheck that. Nova prepares the 5500 for you. You really just need the filing signer updated. So you put in your first name, last name, all this information, your company name. You can use your company information for this. And then after you fill this in, you're going to get just like a whole summary view that says, please double check to make sure it's correct. If everything looks good, then you'll want to click next. Sorry, just scroll. Okay. After you've done that, you'll go to this PIN agreement. So you'll have to read and accept it. This tells you this is good information. If you can't ever, if your PIN is lost or stolen, then there is a number you can call. You can do eFax. You can always request a new PIN. So it's just good information. Go ahead and check that you've read this agreement and select accept agreement. And then there's another agreement. So there's a lot of agreements. The government. So go ahead and read this government. This is the signature agreement. Once you've read this, you go ahead and check it and say that you've read this agreement and click accept agreement. After you've accepted it, you will get a confirmation page. So your information will be filled out where you see the white spaces. So all this information that you had previously put in for your last name, first name, address, and stuff, this will be filled out with your information. Your user ID will show here, your PIN will show here, and then it'll show that you're a filing signer. So this is a really helpful thing. You can go ahead and print it if you want to keep a copy. So then that way you have your user ID and your PIN. One of the really good things about the 5500 is if you know your user ID and you know your PIN, you don't have to worry about logging into any of these accounts for the time being. Subject to change later, but right now it's really handy to just know what your user ID is, know what your PIN is, so then you can use those to sign the 5500. Okay, now you might wonder how you electronically file. So as we mentioned before, the whole trigger to start this process is that you'll get an email from Nova saying it's time to file your 5500. When you click here, this is that page you get. So as we mentioned before you sign it, you are going to want to go ahead and click download filing and attachment so you can print the 5500 and the SAR. You do need to keep a physical copy of the 5500. We'll go over those requirements a little bit later. So it's good to just go ahead and print them. Once you have them printed and you just check to make sure your plain name looks good, address and all of that, go ahead and use your user ID and your PIN. You can select the save your signing credentials on your computer option. We've seen that in the past, if people select this, when they go to click this page next year, it's already pre-filled for them, or they can click it and it will populate with the right information. So once all of that is done, you'll click this button here that says sign and transmit to eFast. So all you really need to do for accuracy is just make sure like you know the address and the plan name is good. If you feel like there's a change required or you have a question about something, maybe you don't know if it's wrong or if it's not wrong, but you're not sure, please reach out to your account manager before you sign it. If you do sign it and then you reach out to your account manager saying, "Oh, my phone number was wrong. I need to fix it." We have to do an amended return, there's additional fees, and it's a longer time. If no changes are needed, then go ahead and print the forms to paper, and then you have to place the wet signature on the paper copy. The IRS requirement is that you need to keep these hard copies that are signed with a pen for 7 years. So go ahead and put them in a file folder that you have for the retirement plan so that should you ever be asked for it, you'll be able to produce it very easily. Okay. So as we mentioned, once you've filled everything in, you can go, or once you've reviewed everything, everything looks good, you don't have questions, go ahead and type in your user ID and your PIN and click sign and transmit to eFast. So after you file, you'll get an email. So the time that it takes from when you sign to when the DOL receives it is very quick. They'll send you an email saying we've received your 5500. However, a good tip is if you're not sure about the status, you want to make sure it was received, go to that original invitation that you were sent by Nova. You can click on the link that says click here to sign your 5500 and it'll actually show you a status. So this is saying the filing has been received by the DOL. So this means this filing has already been signed, so you don't have to sign it again. Another thing you might say is the filing can no longer be signed. That could be if you see that and you know you haven't signed your 5500, go ahead and reach out to your Nova account manager. That also can populate if you check back really quickly and it hasn't quite been over to EFAST to the DOL yet. It'll say that it can't be signed or it's processing. That's okay. If you see that note and you know you have signed the 5500, then just try checking again an hour or two. Okay. And then just a quick note, we do keep track of every time that like whenever the plans are filed, so we know when all of your plans are filed. So if you ever just want to know and you can't remember, feel free to reach out to your account manager, say, have I signed this? And oh, I think I signed this, but I can't remember when. Can you tell me? We are happy to get that for you. Another option is that Nova can electronically file on behalf of your plan. There's quite a few things you need to keep in mind before doing that. They are that you still have to print a 5500 and you still have to sign a paper copy. You have to provide that paper copy to Nova because part of someone else signing on your behalf is that this paper copy with your signature is uploaded to the 5500. We also must receive this fully executed 5500 package, which is the full 5500 signed appropriately, as well as an authorization form at least 5 days prior to the filing deadline. It's okay if it's this is more important in October if it's been extended. So if you do send this to us in July 29th, that won't be a problem. We just really need to make sure it's at least 5 days before the final filing deadline. You also do need to know that the image of your signature will be on the website. As I mentioned before, 5500s are subject to public inspection. So you can go to the website, you can search for a company name, an EIN if you have that, a plan sponsor, and then the 5500 will show up. Everyone's able to see the 5500, and if you had Nova sign it, then your signature will be on this view. There's also some additional fees. Nova's preferred method is for you to sign and electronically file your 5500 yourself, but we totally understand that some people want other people to handle that, and that's not a problem. So if you are interested in the e-signature by Nova, please reach out to your account manager for further details. They'll go over what's needed, they'll provide the papers, they'll answer any questions, discuss fees. Here are just a few frequently asked questions that we tend to get, so we like to add them to this presentation. What should the plan sponsor do when they receive the Form 5500 from Nova? They should review, sign, and electronically submit by the due date. Who can sign the Form 5500? The plan administrator and the employer plan sponsor. So if you are a plan administrator, you do the day-to-day stuff. If you're a trustee, absolutely can sign the 5500. Now, does electronic filing mean paperless? Not exactly. So, even though you are required to sign electronically, you are also required to keep a signed hard copy for your records for 7 years. What happens if you get an error message when you click on the link in our email? First of all, try using a different web browser if it's available. The internet option should be set to allow access to the website, so it shouldn't be blocking. Go ahead and check with your IT support and your internal settings. If you still can't figure out what's wrong, absolutely feel free to reach out to your account manager. How do I know if my electronic filing was accepted? A system generated notice will be issued. Like I mentioned, once you click the sign and submit to eFast button with your credentials, you will get an email from the DOL saying we've received your 5500. If my return is accepted, can it still be subject to audit? Yes, it can. So by accepting the filing, the DOL is not making any determination on the substance of the filing. So they still may subject you to a Department of Labor audit, but it's not as likely. And then will my Form 5500 be posted on the DOL website? It will. If you do have, if you want to get some 2022 instructions, the DOL does go ahead and submit this. This is a link you can click on. We do also have these slides in a PDF format, so please reach out to your account manager if you want a copy of them. If you need any help with anything regarding eFast 2, then you can call 1-866-GO-EFAST. Those are the numbers that correspond to the letters. And if you're interested in the electronic public disclosure website, feel free to click on that. Awesome. Okay, so if you have any questions, please contact your account manager. This is our main line, 713-524-5192. If you can't find your account manager's number, feel free to call our main line. Let our operator know who you are looking for. We'll be happy to transmit the call over to you. We do have additional webinars, so if you're interested in those, please feel free to register there. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.